Mark Rogers TV talking spring football. I believe this is our 30th spring game report or spring session report. And to do it, we go to Stoors, Connecticut to talk about those UConn Huskies with Aman Kidwai, who joins us from time to time and gives us our personnel rundown on the Huskies. Aman, thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely, Mark. Thanks for having me.
Very good stuff. So you were at the spring game. You got to see what the last 6 weeks of work has produced. Let's start at quarterback because you've got a battle on your hands there.
Yeah, so we are returning Tim Boyle, who's a junior. He was actually thrown into the fire as a freshman, as a true freshman, by interim head coach T.J. Wiest after Paul Pasqualoni was fired. He had kind of a rough go about it as a true freshman, and then last year, the plan was for him to redshirt, actually, and Casey Cochran and Chandler Whitmer would be splitting the quarterbacking duties. What happened was Casey Cochran had to retire due to concussions, and Chandler Whitmer ended up graduating. So Tim Boyle kind of entered spring practice as at least the most tenured quarterback on the roster. But he has ceded the lead in the starting quarterback race to a guy named Bryant Sharif, who is a transfer from NC State. So Sharif sat out last year, and I think, well, I know what Diaco likes most, Bob Diaco likes most about Sharif is his ability to make plays with his legs. So he's a mobile quarterback. And whereas Boyle is more of a traditional pocket passer. So, I thought Sharif's, definitely looked rusty in the spring game, but also demonstrated an ability to keep plays alive with his legs. And I just think the trend with some of the other quarterbacks that Diaco has brought in is towards that more dual threat kind of quarterback. So, and Diaco has stated that Sharif is in the lead for the starting quarterback job right now. Tim Boyle had some health concerns last year, or some health issues last year that we were not fully aware of. So he looks really good, but it will definitely be a battle. And then actually this summer, there is a junior college transfer, Garrett Anderson, who will also be joining the fold. So at the conclusion of, or after the spring game, at the conclusion of spring football, Diaco has said that he's not going to name a starter right now. We'll probably take some time into fall camp to do that. So we'll wait and see.
Got to find a quarterback. That's obviously key. And if a guy can take off and improvise and move the chains with his legs, then he definitely has the advantage. And it sounds like right there, especially when the head coach prefers that kind of guy that has those kind of options on third down in particular. All right, let's move on to running back. You've got a running back by committee situation from what I understand. That could be good. That could be not so good. So shake through what we've got to look forward to at the running back position.
Yeah, well, the good thing about it is that it does appear that these running backs all bring kind of a different element to what they do. So all bring different skill sets into the fold. The most exciting, in my opinion, of the running backs is Arkeel Newsome, who was a record breaker in Connecticut high school. Very exciting recruit. He was a parade All-American. Made some exciting plays last year as a true freshman, and the goal for him will be to get him the ball in space. So if you want to think NFL comparison, like a Darren Sproles, just find ways to get Arkeel the ball in space. Then in the category of your more traditional running backs, we've got Ron Johnson, who is probably going to be the closest thing to the starting running back or feature back that we will have. He put in some good work last year as a true freshman. Diaco said, definitely want him to be also the battering ram type for short yardage situations. There's a guy, Josh Mariner, who was a little overlooked coming out of Virginia in high school, but he's a redshirt sophomore, I believe, who uh, is probably the most complete back on the roster, just in terms of his ability to run routes out of the backfield and pass protect, which is why it looks like he might get uh, or fill that role as kind of the third down back. Um, and then lastly, there's a guy, a senior, Max DiLorenzo, who's just been kind of a solid guy throughout his career and has a certain kind of set of plays that he runs really well. Um, so those are kind of the four guys who will be in the mix for us and used in a variety of different ways. The big thing will be whether or not our O-line, which has always been a concern, can give them space to run. So in the spring game, I would say the offensive line was underwhelming. They went against the second string defensive front seven, the starting O-line did, and I think still struggled to kind of move the line of scrimmage forward. So um, that will be something to kind of continuously keep an eye on going into the season.
Yeah, if that offensive line doesn't have it together, the rest of it just doesn't work, regardless pretty much of who you've got. And you mentioned Arkeel Newsome. He's a guy that I had my eye on just because the local high school here has played games against him here in the state of Connecticut. And yeah, he has been something else. And I was interested to see how he would transition, and had a very productive year his first year at UConn. So looking at the defense, even though the record's been down for the last few years, if you watch UConn play, the defense still shows up and plays very strong against some elite competition at times. So what do you got defensively? Is that going to be maintained? Do you have many losses? What's the focus this spring?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. Just to give you a sense, the final score of the blue-white game was 13-3. So it was absolutely a defensive battle, and we did make kind of a shift in our defensive, kind of a shift in the defensive scheme from moving from a 4-3 to more of a 3-4 type look. But that said, we definitely have a lot of really strong players, especially in the front seven. So Julian Kempenny, Folo Fatuski, Kenton Adeyemi, those guys, can take up space and really make a lot of plays in the backfield. I think, and then I think at linebacker, we've got Marquise Van, Graham Stewart, who was a Florida transfer. Marquise Van led the team in tackles last year with around 100. So a really strong front seven. And the secondary is young. We lose Byron Jones, who's getting a lot of buzz in NFL draft circles right now. But the secondary is a little young, but we hope that that we believe that front seven will continue to be really strong, and this UConn team will not be so different from previous iterations in the sense that the defense should be really, really solid. And yeah, I would agree. Last year, the defense is really what kept us in games. I know we were 2-10, but we were in a lot of those games in the fourth quarter, and if it wasn't for the offense kind of continuously sputtering, continuously going kind of 3 and out or 4 and out, we might have seen a little bit more recognition and better numbers in the overall from the UConn defense.
So, Aman, unlike any position in sports, except maybe major college basketball coach, because of the obvious comparison there, the head football coach in college football, just his personality, his approach, everything about him just waterfalls over the rest of the program. He's the guy. He's the guy that everybody looks to, and he sets the trend. His personality, the way he deals with the media, his approach to the game, his philosophy of how you play football, how you run a program, how you recruit, how you do all these things. He's everything. He's the face. So Bob Diaco, in comparison to the other UConn coaches you've been familiar with and nationally, how would you just assess how he approaches running a football program?
Well, he is definitely, learning on the job. And I think when he first came in, there was a lot of excitement. He, you know, came off very energetic and knowledgeable and kind of funny in his introductory press conference, and um, just made a lot of, fun analogies, and I think really won over the fan base there. And then, um, there was some vagaries and misdirections across the course of the season. And then, of course, the fact that we went 2-10, uh, the idea of a 50-50 split at quarterback to start the season. He shut down the passing game in one of our games. So some of those things, may have put some people off, but I think kind of the way you introduce is exactly right. Is that he's much more than a football coach. He's like the president of a football program, and that was his major focus, I guess, in the first year was things like how the players were working out, what their nutritional kind of patterns were, how they treated or how they approached school, the way that they treated people on campus, those kinds of things, which were the foundation that he built. And so I think it showed in a number of players who left the program in the past, we'll call it, 15 months or so, as well as the types of players that he has brought in. When we look at the 2015 recruiting class, they were not so highly rated, but no previous UConn recruiting class was very highly rated, so not a huge concern there. But when we looked at the recruiting class, it was a lot of really smart kids, a lot of kids who had played two sports, who were competitors, who were maybe a little raw on the football end, as we discussed in our last conversation. So he really had to make a mindset shift on this roster, and I think that's kind of the big thing that he was working towards. And what he told us this year is that now he's excited to be talking a lot more about football than about kind of what the ethos and mindset of the program is. I'm cautiously optimistic. We'll see how it works out. Definitely have to give him some time. He did have to revamp the roster. We still have a lot of young players across the key positions, but my stance going into this year, I don't know how much we can. I think we can improve, of course, on last year's 2-10 record, but definitely I'm taking the stance of just being patient with him and giving him time to really make that kind of shift, because I believe when he says that he took over a program from Paul Pasqualoni, that things were in disarray. So we will see. We will see how it goes in year two. But I remain cautiously optimistic about our prospects for improvement.
Well, Aman, the distinction you made there, I think, is very important, distinguishing between a head football coach and the head of a football program. And it sounds like at least Diaco is approaching it from the standpoint that he's going to be around a while, not that he's just going to come in, fix a football team like you see a lot of guys do, and you make a 2-10 football team, a 6-6 or 7-5 team for a couple of years, and you're off to the next gig. It sounded like the way he approached it is though he wants to establish something, build something at the core that he can carry forth and really establish something and build it. So that has to be a good indication of what he's planning long term, and not just trying to make a quick fix for his own career. So that could be a good sign there. Of course, this is a program that made the jump from 1AA to Division I at the time, 1A FBS, and succeeded extremely well right out of the gate, became a bowl mainstay, now has had a couple down years, and Diaco trying to turn things around. Kidwai from the UConn blog always fills us in on UConn Huskies football, and again, to see if this program can get back on the track of postseason play. So, Mon, appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Mark. It was great being here.